We're back with Smash Cutz episode 176 and a familiar face returning once again. First time to Smash Cutz, but numerous times in previous iterations of the podcast, Mr. Sean Chandler. We are excited to chat with him right on the other side. Let's hit it. Welcome back to Smash Cutz. Mr. Sean Chandler joins us once again. Sean, how are you?
I am doing good. I am very tired all the time, but that's because things have been going well. There's just, was it South by Southwest a couple weeks back? I was almost recovered from it, and now I'm off to go to the Overlook Film Festival in a couple of days. So it's like constantly feeling like I'm rushing between things that are all good, but I'm still only, one person with so much energy that needs to sleep at some point in time. But hey, I'm sure I'll do that when I'm older.
You are the Carmen Sandiego of film critics and YouTube. We never know where you're going to be.
That's true. There's even some stranger ones with that. Going to be in Tennessee late in April, too. And that one's totally random. So you never know where I might pop up.
Hey, that keeps things interesting and it keeps everything fresh for you, I'm sure, while there must be some stress along with that. But we're happy to see the content continuously pumped out, as always. Sean, the last time you were on, we had a structure where it was kind of hitting everyone on the pod with a bunch of different topics. We have 3 topics we're going to hit here tonight. We're going to roll right into the first one. We have to talk about Godzilla x Kong, the new empire. Fascinated to hear your thoughts on this.
All right. We're in an interesting time in the world of Godzilla. If you're a Godzilla fan, I would think that this is like the best time to be alive, because whatever type of Godzilla you like, or if you like the whole sampler pack of Godzilla, it's all kind of out there. I mean, there was literally the weekend that the first trailer for this movie dropped was like 2 days after Godzilla -1 came out, which was right as season 1 of Monarch was ending. And so if you like Godzilla, it's a good time to be alive. And I went into this movie expecting the professional wrestling of Godzilla movies. That it's just like, it's all show, ridiculous, over the top. And that's the selling point. That's what it's supposed to be. And that's essentially what I got. It doubles down on everything from Godzilla vs. Kong. And so we're like going even more into Hollow Earth and that lore and exploring. It's even more of like setup, payoff, big slam bang. There's more Titans throwing down. And then there's even more of like, I mean, if one Titan weapon is cool, what if Kong had a robot glove and an axe, and there's a whip, and we've got like every kind of atomic breath you can imagine, and we're like, it's just like, let's double down on it. Like, how does it make any sense? Is it logic? Like, why on earth is the robot arm right around the corner? Hey, shut up, dude. Do you want the robot arm or not? Well, yeah, I want a robot arm. Okay. Then you can have a robot arm, but we're trading logic for that. As long as you're going for that, it's a good time. I went. My wife loves just monster movies. Like the whole appeal is turn off your brain. Like,
absolutely.
Like what she's excited to go see in the theater, the Meg 2, and these movies, because the whole point is we got 3 kids at home. It's wild, stressful, crazy. So we go on a double date with our friends the Butlers, who wife there, Sarah, also loves shark movies and monster movies. 3 kids at their house as well. The whole point of date night is like, yeah, of course it's silly. That's the selling point. So we're in the theater every time Kong picks up a new weapon or Godzilla amps up and is like vibrating from sucking and radiation. She's like, yeah! The little kid next to me, the 8-year-old, is also, yeah! So 40-year-old wife, yeah! And little kid next to me, yeah! That's a fun time at the movies. Will it play the same at home on my couch, rewatch? No, it will not. Will I remember any of these characters? No, I will not. Did I have fun in the theater? Yeah, I got what I wanted out of the theater experience. That's what this movie delivers.
I can't agree with you more, Sean. This is a lot of fun. I had a great time in the theater. I jokingly said afterwards, I think I had a dumb smile plastered on my face the entire time because it's ridiculous. Every inch of this is ridiculous. Baby Kong, Scar King wielding, a magic crystal of sorts to control a Titan. Yeah, just going nuts.
Where did this crystal come from? What's going on?
No backstory whatsoever, but we don't need it. But I love
how
that you
do the
brought
tribes
up
people know the stuff to be that's what's happening at the other end of Hollow Earth that's so big that with our they just know.
Don't ask questions, Sean.
Shut up.
It's the same thing like you said with the glove. That was my favorite. We developed this technology, and you know where it was kept? The outpost around the corner. It's like, of course.
I was like watching the movie like, how are we going to get up to the surface to get him his glove? Like, what is going on? That's all throughout the trailers. Like, what's going to happen? And then I remember the last gas station we stopped at. It's right there, and it's basically done. Like, what?
Yeah.
And it has autopilot. They literally said it has autopilot.
Not to mention, they trekked for quite a while from that ship. And then all of a sudden, he gets in the ship, gets the glove, comes back, and they're still standing in the same spot. I'm like, oh, okay, great. It was, no logic whatsoever. And usually in movies that I expect to have solid sound logic, that would annoy me, and I would write paragraphs about it. In this, I'm like, of course, who cares? This is fine.
And this is exactly what I use this phrase, Taco Bell movies. This is really what I mean by that. Like, people, it's kind of the concept of guilty pleasure movies, but really it's movies that are just designed in this like specific way to put a stupid grin on your face.
Absolutely.
That like, seriously, do you want him to have a robot glove or not? It's that simple. There's no logical way to explain that. So of course it's just sitting there. Oh, fair enough. Gotcha. Fair enough. Like, that's Taco Bell to me. It's butter, grease, hot sauce poured on top of it. There's nothing healthy about any of it. None of this is good for you. That doesn't mean I don't like consuming it. I don't have a lot of fun with it.
I was a little concerned that you were going to really talk bad on Taco Bell there, but I'm glad that you went the route you did.
No.
And understandable.
No. It's not at all a criticism of Taco Bell. Like, Taco Bell is a weekly tradition for my family. My taco itself is soggy every single week. By the time I get home, it's soggy every single time. It's not like they always handle it well. That doesn't change the fact that I'm not trading in my Taco Bell for anything. Like, this is what we do as a family. We love to consume that Taco Bell. And maybe for someone else, it's Inside Out Burger, whatever it's McDonald's.
Get out of my head. Get out of my head.
Subway, whichever one you want to go with. You get to pick your fast food. We all like a different one. And that's why some people, Godzilla X Kong, it's too far. It's too silly. All right. But you have your own cinematic fast food that you consume. And some people love the wackiness of Fast and the Furious. We all have our thing.
Well said.
Crazy monsters work well for me.
Talking about the logic, I had a question of how are they going to get to the surface knowing that that's where this third act was going to end up for a big battle. And then when they were discussing anti-gravity, essentially, or the absence of gravity, I was like, oh, because of course. Yeah. We're just going to get, play with gravity for a few minutes and we'll float up through one of the portals.
And the way that they just they turn a corner, they're like, these portals can take you anywhere. And then they start tying it into like history's mysteries and ancient aliens. It's like you're just watching like, oh, you're implying that that's how that was built. Why? I don't know. Just why not?
Monarch season 2 coming soon.
Yes. Well, that's the other side. Like, if you watch Monarch and then you watch this movie, they're not compatible at all. Like, it makes no sense that like in 5 years we go from what Monarch looks like in that show to like all of these flying spacecrafts.
It
doesn't
hilarious.
add up at all.
Oh my gosh. You're exactly right though. Yeah, it's great. It's one of those mindless movies that you can just have a good time with. And I took my father, and he always impresses me with the amount of knowledge he has about certain IPs and properties. And this was one of them in particular. He kept looking over and saying, "Oh, they're doing this right," or "Oh, I remember this Titan." And we left, and he was just like, "That was absolutely awesome. That was just so much fun. That was great. What a popcorn flick. What a popcorn flick." So it was a great time through and through. The cast itself is, enjoyable. You and I were texting about Rebecca Hall's wig earlier, which is kind of interesting. I'm sorry, it wasn't you and I. It was my friend and I that were talking about her wig. I should apologize, but like I joked around saying that she was just.
Man, I'm not
You're
going
like, were
well.
we? That's weird.
More tired than I thought. Forgot about all of this.
We were talking about how ridiculous some of the lines are that come out of her mouth, but then also how silly she looks with the wig that they put her in, which is always funny to me. It cracks me up that like some of the style choices are always so in your face, and with her in particular, it was such a diversion from what we've seen in the past. But I want to talk about Kaylee Hottle a little bit, the young deaf actress. I absolutely adore this actress. I think that she's not given much to do in terms of like emotion and such on her face, but the way that she plays each of the impactful moments, especially with her relationship with Dr. Andrews in this, I enjoyed her. I thought they gave her a little bit more to work with here. And she obviously has a connection with Tom.
She matters.
She matters, and they did a good job of making her matter. What did you think with her performance and her role?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, I mean, her whole thing is like, I don't fit in, that kind of angst, and the Kong's unhappy, he's hurt. Each kind of always has that's the energy that she has. Mm-hmm. But they actually gave her a journey to go on that ties into what we've seen throughout multiple of these movies with Skull Island, and then let's play that out into Hollow Earth and make her meaningful. And you go, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, we're playing into some tropes of blockbuster genres, many of them, and hero's journey stuff, and all sorts of things. But sure, like you're doing something that instead of it, like I rewatched Godzilla vs. Kong right before I watched this one. I forgot that Millie Bobby Brown was in that movie.
Right.
And my wife is kind of like, I don't think she realizes it, but she's like kind of obsessed with Millie Bobby Brown. The reason we got Enola Holmes 2 is because she watched Enola Holmes 1 so many times. When she watched Damsel, we watched it. I went upstairs to watch a horror movie. She watched it a second time. She watched it like 5 times in a row. And she completely forgot that Millie Bobby Brown was even in that movie, because she's like on a quest that doesn't matter. She's just in the movie to be in the movie. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this case, they actually, like, on a character level, plot level, lore level, she matters. She cares about it. And, like I said, she's only given so many emotions to go for, but you believe them and you buy into it. And so a lot of that works, even just kind of even as you get into I don't want to get too much on specific spoiler type stuff, but
sure,
as you get moved later into it and they're trying to kind of play out her arc of belonging and where she's going to go, you believe what Rebecca Hall believes. Like you're buying into that, and likewise you buy into the ultimate resolution that they go with, which that's because you're convinced by the performance.
Absolutely. Definitely a nice emotional arc for her, I thought, and an emotional journey that, in my opinion, pays off. But I'm wondering where you fall in this this line of there were too many Titans in this one and not enough of the human story, whereas in Godzilla versus Kong, maybe it was better balanced. We talked a little bit just a second ago about the human story there that they especially gave Kaylee. Is that something you're looking for in a movie like this? Because personally, I was fine with just watching Godzilla make jokes about punching a Scar King's tooth out.
I mean, that's always the tricky part of what's the selling point of these movies versus what are we actually buying a ticket to see versus what makes for an actual good movie. Mm-hmm. And when we do have a point of reference in Godzilla -1, we have a recent counterexample of, well, that's weird. I really cared about these characters in a Godzilla movie and made me really, Godzilla, they're finally pulling things back together. Why do you keep messing up Tokyo? Not cool, bruh. Like, and then you watch the what am I doing? And then you watch, this one, and like it's Godzilla vs Kong. I didn't remember anything. We were watching it, and my wife goes, "I don't remember Alexander Skarsgård was in it." Like, you didn't remember any of those characters, and they were all just kind of along for the ride. And so, I mean, I think this one, simply because you do have this girl that matters in the journey, and then because like Dan Stevens was just so fun, I think for that reason the human characters have more importance here. I mean, I think if you're trying to not just make a huge budget B movie, you have to find a way to really balance all of it to where you care. But I mean, even kind of what you said, I think one of the missing pieces in this movie gave Kong an arc, and you can't discount that. One of the reasons that the Planet of the Apes trilogy of the last decade was so well regarded is you go into the first one, you think it's a Franco movie. It's not. It's an Andy Serkis movie. Caesar is the lead character who has an arc, and he's the lead guy. Kong's name is in the title of it. We're talking about the human characters. The problem there is if you don't find a way to give Kong an arc. This movie gives Kong a desire, something in him that's broken, and tying into he's King Kong, and you create a scenario where there's people for him to be their king, but there's an obstacle. He wants to just belong. He's a better noble king, though he is an alpha by all means, but he's also a noble version of that, not the tyrant. There's an actual arc for Kong, whereas Kong Skull Island, which I think overall I like Kong Skull Island more than this movie, but Kong doesn't have an arc in that movie. He's just chilling on his island. This movie, he has an arc.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. I think I agree more, or I should say identify more with Godzilla in this, as he just wants to take a damn nap. That's all he wants to do.
True. He was so adorable when he was in his favorite nap spot.
That was just wonderful. Do you want to see more like this? Do you want to see additional Godzilla Kong mashups, or would you like to see them potentially go back to more focused stories on the individual characters?
I think I don't think that this formula is very sustainable. As much as I'm talking how much fun I had with this movie, I definitely felt there was some diminishing returns for me. And there was a little bit of like, oh, that was fun. Hey, wait a minute. How many people died in Rio de Janeiro? Was it 10,000 or 100,000? Was it 1 million? Like there's a certain amount of at the beginning of the movie, they're like, hey, it's things are great. Kong stays in Hollow Earth. Godzilla's above the ground. Whenever a Titan destroys a major city, Godzilla shows up and saves the day. And they present this as if it's just like normal that like Paris or whatever, Rome is just being utterly obliterated.
Destruction.
But you're just like, they're watching the movie, and at one point in time, like Godzilla's like just traveling, and they show cars driving on a bridge, and he just mauls through the bridge, and it's like, yeah. Wait a minute, a lot of families just died.
Yes.
And I think there's a little bit of that where this movie just, the fun of, hey, he's got a robot glove, let's not overthink how he got it, versus something has to matter. You have to anchor something in reality for me to really care beyond just the entirely superficial, like, yeah, hey, oh man, Kong just grabbed Diddy Kong and threw him at another Kong. Yeah. Like, besides that stuff, you need a little bit more to it. And I think, the team ups mean more when we were able to build out the individuals. And when you just keep escalating, you kind of create a scenario where it's like, how do you even do an individual Kong story now? Like if you just let too much out, if you just open Pandora's box or whatever, that it's tough to dial it back. But I think it would be much better if we done Godzilla versus Kong, and then maybe we have some sort of Kong adventure in Hollow Earth or whatever that's intentionally smaller. and then Godzilla has his own adventure, and then we come back to let's team back up. I think having that massive team up, small like now these aren't even smaller. These aren't small movies. Even if you do Kong and Hollow Earth adventure, I think there's something to that like gives you some breathing room. And like a lot of people are like, why is Godzilla even in this movie? Because he's just like he's legitimately taking naps for the first half, and then he goes on side quests that are the side quests are only there to give him some presence in the film before the finale. So it's like, how's he amping up? Like, you don't need 3 different sequences of he goes here and he does this thing and he does this thing to amp up. Like, you could easily do that in one scene real quick. He's only traveling to Antarctica or whatever, so he does more in the movie. It's entirely fluff.
And so, absolutely Kong's movie here. You're exactly right there. It's definitely Kong's movie. You know what's funny? I think about where they could go in the future, and I don't know. I don't know that there's another film that they can milk out of this recipe of bringing them together. I agree with you. I think they obviously have to take the steps to go solo. The only other option, Sean, is for Godzilla and Kong in space. I think that's the only way they can go.
You are forgetting, my friend, about the multiverse. We'll bring all the different Kongs together, all the different Godzillas together, and for this one final showdown, Crisis on Infinite Skull Islands. I don't know what it'll be, whatever it is, but this is great stuff right here. That Warner Brothers needs to get us on the phone so we can pitch more of these great ideas.
Godzilla versus Kong in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in space. It just keeps going. Oh man. Oh my gosh. Well, listen, speaking of big budget films here, this one being around 135, 140 reportedly. I think that may be before marketing, but not quite sure.
I pretty much that's always before. That was it. Let me look. Is that true that this was under 150?
That's what I'm seeing here.
Because I'm constantly
had a very, very reasonable budget is what's being reported.
I don't know that because it looks good. It doesn't look bad. It looks believable. It fits the movie that you're watching. It's extraordinarily large in scale. So I've had this conversation with a zillion people about a zillion different things about what is going on with a bunch of these Hollywood budgets. If that's accurate, this is another one of these ones like, what is Warner Brothers doing that they're making this movie for 135? They're making Dune for under 200 million. Like, Disney, do you need to send some people over to learn? Warner Brothers, they need to learn from everyone else about artistic integrity and not shelving movies, but at least they know how to make a movie for a reasonable budget.
And you know what? Oscar winner Cord Jefferson, writer director of American Fiction, also agrees with that. Let's dial back a little bit to the Oscars a couple weeks ago, where in his acceptance speech, he made a plea for mid-budget films, saying, try making $10 million movies instead of the $200 million blockbusters. And he later said that this was a plea to acknowledge and recognize that there are so many people out there who want the opportunity that he was given. It's funny here because I was thinking about this today when I was preparing for the podcast with you, and thinking back to the films that I've enjoyed, Dune and Godzilla aside, the past maybe year or so. It's been a lot of the mid-budget, the low-budget, the indie films. It's a lot more of the straightforward, not bombastic, high expectation films that I think are really hitting with me. And I wonder, Sean, especially thinking, we haven't talked about Marvel and all the turmoil over there and the reshaping that seems to be happening, taking a step back, not throwing out so many films in one year, perhaps being a little bit more budget conscious when it comes to projects. Do you think that the time of this mega blockbuster that we got so used to, the films that are expected to cross $1 billion, do you think that time has passed and that we're back maybe in the cycle, the part of the cycle that is more focused on more accessible films, more mid-budget films?
I hope so. I feel like last year it had to be a wake-up call for all the studios. They just had to look at that and go, oh, this is almost a parody of ourselves. Like, all of us thought if you just throw $250 million at an IP, that it'll instantly print money. And Disney being the one that, took probably the most hits about this, but it was everybody. Everyone, all the big studios put out movies that cost way too much money. And they put out so many of them, if you just stop and think about it. Like, from the beginning of March until the middle of August, almost every single week, there was a high-budget franchise film. Every week. Some adaptation that cost a lot of money. And if you just stop and think about that, there aren't enough ticket buyers to justify that, to make all of those movies profitable. And so you're just competing against each other in a way where you can't all win. It guaranteed some of you are going to suffer, and then you just exhaust people. Mm-hmm. And you saw that last year with so many movies underperforming, where I believe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was the only movie with a budget over $200 million that definitively made a profit. There were others that were kind of like at that break-even point with Elemental, maybe Little Mermaid. But they're films that all they had to do was have a more reasonable budget, and all of a sudden they make $100 million. But because they spent exorbitantly large amounts of money to create them, they lost so much money. And I look at like A24. I'm not a gigantic A24 fan on a preference level.
Yeah,
there's a lot of their movies that I don't feel are for me, but I love A24 as a studio that's making mid-budget original films. And as of recently, they've started making movies that maybe it's just coincidental they put a couple of them out that happen to be right up my alley. But Iron Claw, right now, I might say that's my number one of last year. I think I previously said Godzilla -1. But either case, those are both movies that aren't a $250 million Hollywood film.
Absolutely.
So Iron Claw, and then coming out in a couple weeks, Civil War, I thought it really worked. And it's another movie that's reasonable budget, and it feels immersive. It feels big, but you believe every shot of the movie in a modest budget. And then likewise, Blumhouse, kind of totally different from A24 in a sense, but also high concept, reasonable budget. Hey, let's give you a shot. You got $10 million. Your movie doesn't need to make $100 million for us to be profitable. And they do these high concept films, and it makes it much easier to market an original film and make a profit on it. And so, like, I see the quote from Cord Jefferson there, and I hear that and I go, right, Hollywood, please start doing this. And you think back to the 90s, like how many movies that it was just commonplace that you'd have these mid-budget action films, these rom-coms that, over half the budget just goes to get Sandra Bullock and the male lead, Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson or whatever. And that was like the selling point, is you really like them in this type of movie. And you had a lot that was in the middle. And you had these windows where they would kind of trust these up-and-comers to do stuff. And I think even where you see so much of what's like really broken in Hollywood right now is that you have these people that make a small-budget indie film that gets great reviews, and then they snatch them up and turn them into basically a McDonald's manager and put them over a Marvel movie. And,
a lot of fast food tonight. A lot of fast food here tonight.
Yeah, that's how it works for me. that's how I roll. But you think like Nia DaCosta does Candyman, and this very distinct movie with a vibe, very distinct aesthetic vibe, directorial flavor, and then she's given this gigantic movie, and she's openly like, "Oh, it's Kevin Feige's film. They did this, they did this," and you're immediately like, "This." There's things that feel like she directed this, but overall, this feels like she was a franchise director. Like she's just a hired gun. And instead of being like, you were successful this thing here, here's something in the middle. You just jump straight over, like, and it's like, that's the journey. Didn't the Daniels get a job doing some stuff for Star Wars or something like that? And you go, you don't have to turn these creative, interesting people into franchise guys. Even
Right.
Adam Wingard, the guy that
Absolutely.
I loved Your Next, and then he like somewhere that he's doing these gigantic blockbuster ones.
Yep.
Like I want him to pause and like now do a $30 million horror film where you have the resources to do interesting stuff, but it's not about big stars. It's not about a franchise. It's not about that. It's like do Your Next with more of a budget. Anyway, I'm rambling on there, but I mean, I want the return of the mid-budget film in all genres in all different senses. Or even one final thought. Like, you think movies that when we were growing up, like all of these lawyer movies based off John Grisham books.
Absolutely.
You think that things like all the dramas that, like I went to go see in high school and middle school, and those would be big hit films. And now the Holdovers would have been this big hit film back in 1995, and it comes out now and it makes $10 million, and everyone's like, it's fantastic. Oh, maybe I'll stream it someday. It's bizarre what's going on.
Yeah. Very different. It's as an aside, you just had me thinking about Adam Wingard and his previous filmography and Dan Stevens in The Guest, that connection that probably led to him being cast in this film. But you're exactly right. And, we are getting some films this year that are starting to get some buzz that would have been big hits back in the 90s. Think about Tom Hanks and Robin Wright and Robert Zemeckis' Here coming out later this year. It's a Forrest Gump reunion. That in another time would be a huge draw. But you're also looking at right now, we have to look at the fact that rom-coms are making a comeback and they're on the lower budget scale. You're also seeing horror continue to have success, whether it's indie horror or even things like Scream that are lower budget films that are doing very well. So it's kind of fascinating here. I don't know, thinking from a business point of view, do you want to take the risk on a huge blockbuster where, as you said, last year showed studios that they're not a sure thing anymore? Or do you want to take the risk on lower budget projects, more of them, and hopefully get good return that's then going to allow, as an aside as well, those directors like the Daniels, like Wingard, like whoever, to continue to follow their passion, which brought success to the projects they originally worked on in the first place. It's just kind of fascinating to me that we're in this big budget world, and I do kind of blame Marvel for it a little bit, for the way that things started back with Iron Man and built up quickly. Not to get into it, but we saw that how it moved the goalpost with DC so quickly, where if the movie wasn't making $1 billion, it was a problem. Granted, let's talk Batman versus Superman. It was critically panned, but still made over $800 million, which is a successful film in and of itself.
Same with Amazing Spider-Man 2. Made $800 million, and people are like, this garbage, it only made $800 million, and you're like, these are crazy expectations.
Absolutely crazy expectations, which I'll turn back, Sean, to a conversation you and I just had offline about the Tribeca Film Festival. That's where you find a lot of these low budget films, a lot of these indie films that will probably be finding their way through the Neons and A24s and Bleecker Streets of the world, and won't make a ton of money, but will be very well regarded when we get to awards season next year.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I went to South by Southwest a couple weeks back, and like what I always hope that I can kind of do with some of my rankings and the way I do things is like I use Monkey Man, Fall Guy to what does he think about those, and then in the video hopefully point you towards the $1 million little mini horror film or whatever. It's even like the big concept when I started doing monthly rankings was whenever I would do an individual review for these smaller films, someone doesn't know what it is, so they don't click on it. But then if you package it in this context, we're like, oh, did he like Dune Part 2 or Imaginary more? That's a good question. But okay, no one's asking that. But in that video where they're tuning into that, and then sandwiched all within it, I'm like, there's a movie called One Percenter. It's actually a Japanese martial arts film. I saw it at Fantastic Fest last September. It didn't get any promotion, but it's a cool little martial arts film. If you want something a little bit different, it's like Die Hard, a little Fight Club in there, and it's like it has this cool style to it. Check this movie out. If I did a review of 1% Warrior, it would be my worst performing video. But because I'm talking about this other context, it's going to be seen by like 10,000, 15,000 people are going to hear about that movie. And like, it's legitimately trying to find ways to leverage my platform and leverage the big movies people want to hear me talk about to say, also, these things are out there too. Please check them out so we can get more of those too.
Very smart man. Very smart man. That's a great way to get some attention to films that people otherwise wouldn't have known about, wouldn't have recognized. That's actually when I first started Guy at the Movies back in, 2019 at this point. That was one of my focuses. It was on, not only the blockbusters, but I wanted to draw attention to some of the other films that people might not be talking about.
Yeah.
And quickly found that festivals were a great location to identify those. But also, you get this as well. I'm 100% sure the emails every day about different types of films that, we may never even see released wide. They might go straight to digital. But sometimes there's some gems in there that you really want to share with people.
And it's one of the things that makes the world of the current version of film discourse so tricky, and everyone feels this, that because it's a click-based version of how things grow and monetize all of that, what do people click on? That's what you cover more. And because of that, you hide all the other stuff, and everyone wants to cover that other stuff more. Everyone is more interested in talking about something besides the most obvious thing to talk about.
Yep. But listen, Target, Walmart, whatever, you got to get them in the door first in order to sell them everything else. So it's how the world works here. So, we're talking about low budget films, but why don't we shift back to big budget films here and what's happening with the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. This is wild. In my opinion, based off of all the back and forth that we've heard over the past couple of years with what was happening, whether Johnny Depp would be back, whether there was a Margot Robbie female-led Pirates coming down the pike, whether we were getting, is it the 6 Pirates would this be? I mean, geez, so many different Pirates that have been out there. But we learned this past week from an interview with Michael Bay that we are getting
Jerry Bruckheimer.
Was it Jerry Bruckheimer? I thought it was Michael Bay. Jerry Bruckheimer, thank you.
I don't think Michael Bay's attached to. He's attached to Michael Bay and Jerry Bruckheimer, but I don't think Michael Bay's attached to Pirates.
No, you're probably right. I want to say it was an interview with both of them that Bruckheimer probably mentioned this, but not. I'll figure out why I'm getting that cross. But long story short, it's getting the reboot treatment here. And the big question is, I think on a lot of people's minds, whether Depp will be returning. I've always had a question as to whether Disney would bring him back into the mix after the high-profile kerfluffle, if you will, with Amber Heard. But, what do you think about this? Is it a smart move that they're going the reboot route? Given all the time that's passed since the last film, the length of the series so far, the age of the actors, and the Johnny Depp of it all?
I don't know. This is one of these
Pick
ones
one.
that's so. It feels like it feels like exactly what it is. It's a studio that has a property that in the past has printed them money. They want to print more money, and they have no idea how to do that at the moment for all the reasons you just listed. Of even if Johnny Depp wasn't this hot button polarizing topic, take that off the table, he's still 60. And when a bit plays well just because you're 40, when you do something when you're 40, it doesn't play the same when you're 60. And so you just kind of go, does this still work? And so, but beyond that, how much lore do you want to tie back to? Do you want that baggage? Do you just want a fresh reboot? And so then you just have years of it feels like every 2 months there's a new pitch on the table. And like Margot Robbie's doing an all-female Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's actually going to be, it's not a reboot, but it's in the same canon, and Johnny Depp's only going to show up for 10 minutes. Actually, it's this, and then Craig Mazin's writing one. We wrote this one. It's so crazy and weird, and they actually told us, yes, and they liked it. Jerry Bruckheimer's like, we're rebooting the entire thing. And then we got the chef from The Bear. She's actually the lead. And what is this? And I imagine that's what's going on behind the scenes, is that they're just having pitch after pitch after pitch, trying to find what's the right way to bring it back. And there's a lot of people that are like, there's no Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp. Like, I don't I think that really undersells how good that first film really was. It was
Totally
a
agree.
good film elevated by the fact that you had a fantastic character and performance. I mean, Johnny Depp was a movie star for 20 years before Pirates of the Caribbean, and it propelled him to this whole other level of crazy fame because he was so good. But independent from that, it's just a good swashbuckling adventure that's funny, it's exciting, it has a bit of a hero's journey in there, and that it's just spooky enough that it has a little bit of horror stuff in it, but not so much that it alienates people that don't like horror. You know, my wife doesn't do horror at all, but she loves that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It was just like so well rounded, and then you put Johnny Depp in it, and it's a special thing. But there's no shortage of bad Pirates of the Caribbean movies starring Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he's the secret sauce, but I think it's just really tough to figure out what that is. And back to the stuff we talked about before of like finding talent in smaller things. You go back when the guy that they picked to do that movie, he'd done The Ring. He did this one creative horror movie that was like a breakout hit. And then they went, all right, here you go. Here's 150, 100 million, whatever the budget was back then. And he did something special. And it doesn't feel like they were crazy, like they let him make it. Whereas it feels like back to our previous topic, I meant to say this in there, but part of the problem when you're making a $250 million bet that has to make $1 billion, everyone has ideas on what it takes to make $1 billion. And so there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And that's what kills a lot of those movies is that it's everyone's trying to micromanage. And so it just cancels each other out. And you just get these vanilla blockbusters where you watch that first Pirates and it has such a personality to it. Like, it's so good. It's so distinct. And it feels like all these ideas, that overproducing, overwriter, overdeveloping, that I think is what's going to kill this thing.
It all goes back to trusting the creator that you hire to deliver the product that you hired them for, in my opinion.
Which
and that's
Disney
what's always
is not
bothered
doing.
me. Disney is not doing. I want to, one, explain my Michael Bay slip up, but two, give you the reason why I had that slip up. It's because the rumored writers for this film were first rumored back in October of 2023. And at the time, they were working, or they had just written the Six Underground film for Netflix that was from Michael Bay. This is Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick are best known for the trilogy of Deadpool films, as well as other things like Zombieland Double Tap, and the Twisted Metal series. So it's, it remains to be seen whether they'll be connected to this in any way. They were rumored back in October of 2023 when it was also rumored that Disney was exploring a reboot. So for me, while this news is breaking now based off of Jerry Bruckheimer's comments, it does sound like this has probably been in the works for quite a bit now. Yeah. And it's just been a lot of the internet personalities, such as ourselves, that have been keeping the different options alive. I'm interested to see where they go. I think there's a way that they can bring this back to basics in a way similar to, going back to the Godzilla conversation, that Godzilla -1 took the concept and brought it back to basics. I would love to see that with Pirates, where we're not just building, all this foundation for a long-running franchise that we already know we're going to get, but to deliver something, or develop something rather, that we can then tell stories within that world. Maybe Star Wars, but done better, where it's not just the the same family in 9 films that we're talking about, but let's broaden our horizons a bit, because yes, the island of Tortuga and the ships that we're all familiar with and Jack Sparrow are all really captivating and wonderful, but the property can be more than that. And if you really want to make that money that they're all after, that's where you have to start. You can't just go at it one film at a time and hope to make $1 billion. Build something, get in it for the long run here.
And I think I actually really like what you just said there. I mean, I think that's where people, like, when some people just so locked in on Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp and Jack Sparrow only work because the world is exciting and the world is worth exploring. Yep. And there's a lot of stories you can tell in that. There's a lot of directions you can go with that. And yeah, like you said, you don't have to build it entirely on the shoulders of anyone. It's pirates. It's right there in
Absolutely.
the title. Like, there's all these different things you can do with that and explore with it. And in a world like where there's too many cinematic universes, or there's things that don't lend themselves to cinematic universes that they're trying to turn into cinematic universes. This is one where it's like right there. It's really
It's there.
obvious. Like it's not complicated to imagine a really good TV show. It's a little tough because water's expensive, but you find like the right island, lively characters, supernatural elements, a little bit of ghouls, a lot of sword play, a lot of fun banter. It's really easy to imagine this. And then it ties into a movie that, like, but it's not, it like doesn't demand that you watch it, but it enhances things. It's really easy to imagine this.
Absolutely.
But just you overthink it, and it's like, oh, it's got to make $1 billion. Just trust the creator and have fun.
The Johnny Depp of it all is it's pretty funny, because I was doing some research on this film and what the different rumors were out there, and one of the headlines literally said Johnny Depp loses his character of Jack Sparrow. That was the headline. It wasn't about pirates being rebooted or where things were going. It was focused specifically on Johnny Depp lost his character, which is just, it's very interesting.
Of course. He got 5 movies. As the made. I mean, across all those movies, he probably made easily over $100 million.
Absolutely.
And he was worth it. Like, to put Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp, easily was worth $20 million for any of those sequels. Should have made over $100 million, and I think that would be makes sense to me. It's phrasing it as he lost it. He lost, like, as if. I was just, and at the same time you go, right, because there's a whole wing of the internet that is built around justice for Johnny and things like that. Like, it's such a passionate fan base for it. It's fascinating the way some of those work. I don't know. I'm kind of wired to just, anytime they have these polarizing things, I don't think that like half of people are totally wrong and half of people are totally right. I always just kind of imagine it's this weird, awkward, blurry, messy middle. And so I look at it and I go, he's not a saint and he's not the devil. Like, it's like everyone in Hollywood are freaking weirdos. It's not such an unhealthy existence to have that many people like treating you and like they expect you to be Jack Sparrow. Like, what does that do to you? And it's so bizarre. And then we know all of these things about their personal lives that we shouldn't know. And if my wife could tell every crazy weird thing I ever did, I'm a crazy weird person like everyone else. And yes, it's just that we're not supposed to know every crazy thing. Now none of the humans in my household have ever pooped on a bed or whatever went down in the Depp household. This feels out the way weirder than mine, but still, I shouldn't know that. I don't want to know that. Whatever this is. I don't know. So I look at some of that stuff and the way that people like hard pick lines of, like, I guess that we touched on this a little bit before we started, but like,
yeah,
it was announced yesterday, or not announced, reported yesterday, rumored yesterday, Sydney Sweeney's going to be in a movie called Day Drinker with Johnny Depp. Half the internet was like, what, this is a great choice. This is going to help her career. And the other half were like, her career's over. We were rooting for you. Ruined your career. And picked sides instantly over this whole, you guys, can we just calm down a little bit? Let's wait to see if it's even true. And also, like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? This was just too much weight on everything. Just dial it back.
It's almost like this film community microcosm is reflective of the overall society that we find ourselves in 2024 for some reason.
Just so bizarre the way we pick, just draw a line. Are you on this side or on this side?
Yeah.
What? What are you doing?
Insane. Absolutely insane there. All right. Well, listen, we are going to wrap up with a new round of topics that we like to call Smash Cutz.
Smash Cutz.
All right.
And here's the deal.
Ready to go for this.
I'm going to throw some topics at you, and I want your reactions. I want to know, yes, we usually say smash or pass, but we're not sold on that yet. But here we go. Ready? First and foremost, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, smash or pass?
I will actually go with. Actually going to go smash because it was enough of an improvement. I haven't submitted my Rotten Tomatoes recommendation. I don't know if I'm going fresh or rotten in that sense, but because it's moving in the right trajectory, it was better on every level in the first film. They hired a better writer. I actually will, in that sense, I'm going to say, hey, we're moving in the right direction. So I'm going to go the smash, though I might go rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. The world's complicated and nuanced.
It'll be wild when the Pooniverse makes more money than the Marvel film that comes out that year. Smash or pass film festivals?
Smash. They're cool. On of course, getting to see movies is cool, and discovering smaller things, being at world premieres. Mm-hmm. The big one for me is all these people that I know on Twitter. I'm hanging out with them. You meet them. I'm sitting in the front row waiting for Immaculate to start. Scott Mantz, who pretty famous in the movie space, he walks up to me and he goes, Are you Sean Chandler? And I'm sitting there like, I've been trying to find the right moment to walk up to you, and you, Scott Mantz, walked up to me and knew my name? What on earth is going on right now that this just happened? And so I was like, I am Scott Mantz, saying his full name the way that I always say about people. And the next day he's on CNN talking about Civil War. I'm like, what is this day of my life? But that's film festivals. You're just like hanging out with other movie lovers. And this is supposed to be a quick answer, but
no, that's great.
They're very... In particular, I had someone ask me about them, like, is it actually a good thing for these film festivals where you're showing Fall Guy 6 weeks before it comes out? Like, no, that's not the point of a film festival. Fall Guy is the hook. Makes it high profile. Mm-hmm. The point is everything else. You watch 4 movies per day. Fall Guy is 1 movie. Yep. Everything else. That's what we're trying to bring exposure to. They're trying to find distribution. Like a lot of movies that play, they're not going to play. They don't have anyone to distribute. They're not going to come out for a year. What's this movie in the last couple of weeks? Dinner with the Devil, Late Night with the Devil?
Late Night with the Devil, yep.
That played at South by Southwest a year ago, and it just came out. Because that's how this stuff works. That is what film festivals are about, not the Fall Guy having its world premiere. That's literally just to get movie stars to make it high profile.
There's a whole business engine behind it that people don't really think about, and it's quite wild and intriguing, quite honestly. All right, smash or pass, Bluey.
Gotta go smash. It's an obsession in my household. You know this. Right before we started, we're sitting here like, all right, I'm gonna hit record. The door flies open. My 5-year-old runs in. Dad, Bluey's disappeared. My Bluey game's disappeared. I had to run out of the room to try and solve this crisis that the Bluey PlayStation.
This is very true. You did run out of the room.
Yes, I did. And you discovered that the shorts that I wear in my videos, I am in fact wearing pants in my videos. So you can confirm this. Solved the crisis so we could start this recording. But I know it's just like very wholesome, clever entertainment. True story. Earlier this week, my 4th grader came home and go, Dad, we need a VPN. What? You think someone's going to hack into my computer? It's like, Dad, in Australia, they have other episodes of Bluey. And they have alternative jokes. That's why you want a VPN? Like, how did you even learn that that's a thing in the 4th grade? But my household, besides me, is obsessed with Bluey. And of things for them to obsess over, I am so for it. If they're not watching YouTube, all these kids watching these crappy YouTubers, YouTube is not a real job. People that make YouTube their career are a joke. And my kids keep watching a bunch of that crap. Oh, wait, what did I just say?
Yeah. Daddy, this is actually kind of weird. Scott Mantz just texted me and said, I heard you have some scoop on Sean Chandler and his pants in videos. So this is actually really good. True. Smash or pass, actors who don't age, like Ernie Hudson and Paul Rudd.
Oh man, that's just this is wild. This picture. Well, I mean, I since I don't know how they're doing it. Like, are they actually drinking the blood of virgins or whatever it is? But pass on that. But if it's a healthy smash, like this picture comes out, Paul Rudd and Ernie Hudson standing next to each other.
Yeah.
Historically, Paul Rudd has been the face of not aging. And then you look at this picture, and Ernie Hudson looks younger and in better shape than Paul Rudd. Ernie Hudson turns 80 next year. And you're like, everyone is seeing this picture like, what is happening here? Like, when did Ernie Hudson become like the face of not aging? Like, out of the blue, just like, this is incredible. As you realize he's about to turn 80 and could easily pass for 50.
Agreed. Wow.
Wild.
Yeah, I know which picture you're referencing, and when I saw that, I'm like, what is happening over in that wing of Hollywood?
Yeah. And it's not just like his skin looks great, he's just also in great shape too. He's like jacked. You're like, this is a very fit, jacked man whose skin looks incredible. Wow. And there are also some side-by-side pictures of him at age 35, like years before Ghostbusters, and him now. And you're just like...
It's wild. Absolutely wild.
Well done. Whatever it is, whether it's legal, whether it involves sacrificing humans, you pulled it off. You found the secret.
Sean, last one here. Smash or pass. Fortnite victory royales.
Oh, yeah. Us as a family, we did a Fortnite. Chloe has been out of the Fortnite for a while. So she came back for this new season where it's like somehow her brother convinced her. She didn't want to do it. She said yes, and she got back into it for the first time in like 2 years, actual playing. So we did a squad game. So we got a family victory royale. The family that forts together, knights together, whatever that means. So absolutely smash that. We almost got a couple more, and we just we're so close. And we ended in the top 2 or whatever. It was frustrating. This guy was so good. He was so good. This one guy took out our whole family. But actually we were doing split screen, and my remote stopped working. It was like a glitch. The day before it happened to my wife, where you couldn't shoot your gun, you couldn't pick anything up, you couldn't drop anything, but you could still move around. And so the game before it happened to my wife, this game it happened to me. So I'm running around trying to jump in front of the guy to get him to hit me with bullets. But it was frustrating. I had the lightning bolt deal. If I had been able to use that to take out his structures, we could have beat him. If I could have dropped it and given it to my wife, and she takes out his structures, Liam takes the guy out, we would have won. But then this one guy murdered my whole family. I'm going to track down his IP address, and I will make him pay. I smash the victory royales. That's what we do as a family. Dominate.
That guy has a VPN just for Bluey. Yes. And his name is it's Liam Neeson.
Yeah, there it is. The VPN, it's for Bluey, it's Liam Neeson, and in fact to hide his identity so that he could murder my entire family.
Oh my God, John.
Fortnite.
The family that forts together, knights together. We'll be seeing that in a promotion soon.
Yeah.
Sean, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. You are one of my favorite people to chat with. I don't think people need to know where to find you, but why don't you go ahead and share where you can be found on the interwebs, VPN or not?
If you go on the Twitter, it's Kirk Never Died. That's a Star Trek reference, not a Nirvana reference, because that was Kurt, not Kirk, in that band. On
Did people say that?
I've had someone, was that a Nirvana reference? And at first I was like, it's Kurt, not Kirk. Kirk, different names, but they're both all pivotal for me during my formative years. Back when I had long hair, I was inspired by a poster I had of Kurt Cobain. So both are important. It could have been Kurt too, but it has a very different meaning if you say Kurt Never Died as opposed to a fictional character. Different connotations there. If you're looking at the screen or in the notes, that's my Instagram handles that Sean talks about. And if you want to find me on the YouTubes, look up Sean Chandler. You will either find a football player or an NFL player, actually, or a guy that looks like me talking about movies. It's the guy that looks like me that talks about movies.
And you'll be heading to another festival here shortly, Overlook, is that correct?
Overlook in New Orleans. And while we're there, I'm going to be with my buddy Cody Leach. We might do a ghost tour, but we're both committed to doing the hard target tour. We're going to see if we can actually hire the movie because the movie Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van
Oh
Damme.
yeah, got it.
Takes place in New Orleans, and it's very much a New Orleans film. Like it's all about like going to the iconic locations and having rich people hunt the poor. And so we're going to go visit all these spots and see how they look and fight each other to the death.
And film it.
Fingers crossed that we get to interview Radio Silence.
That would be incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I'm trying to do a better job of reaching out on interviews, so that's our first one. Let's see if it happens.
That would be a great first one. The ghost tours are fascinating because they're in New Orleans, especially. They're like, hey, look, down here, it was reported from someone who heard from someone that something once happened in this building, and they're pointing towards like a Hilton. And you're like, wait, what? So it kind of takes a little bit of imagination there. But Sean, once again, thank you so much for being here. Next week, Sean, Math Teacher Movies, our co-host, will be joining us once again. Please like this episode wherever you're listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends, follow Smash Cutz Podcast on Instagram and Smash Cutz Pod on X, or what I refer to it as the Twitter. And Sean, we will talk to you soon, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.